I felt like I had a cheerleader group during my pushing. Like it was such a cool experience. And I was able to be fully present for it because I didn't feel like I was dying. But I could feel my contractions, which is what I wanted. So it was more natural. I could feel them coming. I'm like, I'm having a contraction. She'd look at the screen, like, okay, let's push.
Welcome to the Birth Education Center podcast, hosted by myself, Care Messer, an entrepreneur, birth educator, and doula. My team and I want to help you discover your options in birth and postpartum, how to find your voice, and how to use that voice to navigate our maternal healthcare system. You and your baby are not just a number. This information includes doulas too. Now let's get started. We have a birth story today. I'm welcoming Brandi and her doula Heather Taylor to the show today. Brandi was in my hypnobirthing class with her husband last year, and she had a wild birth story. So I'm excited for you to be here today to share that, Brandi.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And Heather is along for details and probably actionable things that Brandi forgot. So I like to have doulas on because they add that little piece of, oh, and don't forget you said fuck 6 times or whatever. So anyway, Brandi, let's start with what kind of fears did you have coming into birth?
Sure. To be honest, I didn't have the crazy fears that a lot of people talk about when they think about birth. I just wanted to make sure that one, I had a fear, I guess, of birthing and laboring on my back. That was like one of my biggest things. And I remember when Heather came over, I was like, this is my big thing. Like, I don't want to do that. And we'll get into how that happened later. But I will say one of the other things is just health. I wanted to make sure I was healthy, my baby was healthy, and there weren't any emergencies. That was like, I want to stay away from that. And so those were really the main fears. And yeah, I worked through those.
And I remember because I was like, oh, we can do that. You don't have to push on your back. Like,
Yeah.
It's such a rare thing. Do you know why that was a big thing for you?
I just know it's not natural. And I had read up a lot on it. So I'm one of those people that I like a lot of information. And so I did a lot of research on a lot of different things, watched a ton of videos, hypnobirthing as well. Like I just piled in everything. And I learned that it's not a natural position. You think of pooping, you don't poop on your back. And so it's just like a squatting, right? A squatting position. I was like, I just envisioned myself so much and I visualized what that experience would be like for me. And that gave me so much pause. I was like, this does not feel like the right thing to do. And I want to be able to move around the room and do what feels right in that moment. And so that for me was like, I don't want to be stuck on my back. It was just kind of one of those things I clung on to and wanted options.
I think that's how we bonded because I'm just as type A and you're like, I'm taking breastfeeding and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I'm like, yes, all the information. So then at the time you can just let go. There are some of us like that.
Yeah. Got to over prepare.
Yeah. And I needed to over prepare too. That's what worked for me. So I get it. Okay. So Heather, do you want to put anything in before we start the birth story?
No, I remember showing up to our first prenatal and she was super prepared. She had a ton of questions. She was ready to go. And I'm like, woo, all right. So it was almost in a way like, I'm glad she was so prepared, but also my job then became helping her go with the flow a little bit as she was about to find out. Birth is very unpredictable sometimes.
All over the place. All right, let's start with your birth story.
Sure. Okay, so this is actually funny. My husband and I were doing ABC dates. I don't know, Heather, if you remember that, but you go through the alphabet A through Z and you start by flipping a coin and deciding who's going to go first. And then you alternate planning, which is fun because you try things that you didn't think you would do. So anyhow, and you do whatever it is with that letter. So apple pie for A or whatever. So
I love it. That's so creative. That's so fun.
It's so fun. Highly suggest it for anybody who's looking to like spice up some date nights and not just go to dinner every time. So I was really determined to have Z be the zoo date, and we were going to do that with her. We were at X, and there was like a Christmas movie out in theaters, and I was like, we had no desire to see it, but I'm like so determined. I'm like, we're going to brunch, or we're going to see Xmas, whatever it was. And so we got to brunch, and I get out of the car, and I'm like, oh, I think I peed a little bit. And my husband looks at me with these glared eyes, and he was like, don't even tell me. And I was like, no, this happens when you're pregnant. You just kind of leak a little bit. And so I go to the bathroom and I check it and nothing comes out and I go to pee. And so I immediately smell and I'm like, doesn't smell like anything. I drink a lot of water, whatever. I go to wash my hands and more comes out and I'm like, oh, I think something's happening here. So I go to the bathroom and nothing comes out again. I'm like, but I'm like wet at this point. I'm like, I was trying not to panic. So I walk out of the restaurant and there's other ladies in there, but I don't want to be like, hey, I think my water is broke, because we all know ladies would freak out. So I'm walking outside and I tell my husband, so I think my water might have just broke, but I think we're good. Like, we could do brunch. Let's see where we're at, and then go to the movie. And he's like, oh, hell no. Get your ass in the car. We're going home. And I'm like, no, I want to go see the movie. So anyway, I get in the car and I immediately call Heather. I'm like, I think my water broke or something, or it's leaking. What do I do? And she's like, well, let's talk through it. Is your pad full? Is it wet? Let's talk through that. And I'm like, a little bit, but it just feels like I peed a little bit. So anyhow, she's like, go home, switch out, put another pad in and see if it keeps happening. And then we can talk through it. So I go home, and sure enough, this is at like noon. At like 3 o'clock, I start to feel contractions. And so I tell her, I'm like, I think I'm having contractions, but I'm not even really sure what's happening here. First baby, right? So I'm not sure what to expect. And so we keep in touch. And then by 5 p.m., it was like I was in consistent contractions. And it was freaking awesome. Not gonna lie. I loved the beginning. Care, I had you in my mind because you're like, it can take a while. Make sure you get rest and all those things right before. And I'm like, I'm hyped. How do I rest right now?
Which is what I tell you. You're going to be
Right?
so over the top that you can't like dial it back.
Yeah. And of course, my husband's listening to you during our classes. So he's like, you need to rest. Care said you have to relax. And so I'm like sitting on the couch and I'm like, I think things are like totally happening right now. I could not chill out. But I ended up doing the exercises with the ball, and I'm doing some deep breaths, and like nothing's too crazy for me yet. So we kept in touch with Heather, and she's like, I can come over if you want, but it seems like things are under control over there. And it was like, I felt really empowered. I was like, I've got this. And we kept through that. And just to add here, I can't remember what it's called, but the swab test, where if you test positive, what is that called?
Oh, GBS.
GBS. So I had tested positive. And so at that point, that was like one of the main things I was leaning on Heather for initially, was like, hey, I did test positive. So when do I have to go to the hospital? Because I can do this all night here, and you want to labor as long as you can at home. You're in your zone and your comfort. But she was like, well, I can't confidently tell you that you should be home for too long because there are risks involved and stuff. And I was like, okay. So I'm telling my husband, I'm like, okay, well, let's make the call at like 8 o'clock. Let's see how we go. And he's so uncomfortable. He's like, you're making a lot more noises and it's loud. So I think it's time to go. And I was like, no, let's just, 8 o'clock. He's like, we're getting in the car at 8:30, no later. And it was funny because I was like, I don't know if I'm too early. I'm definitely in pain. I'm uncomfortable, but I felt, again, I felt so empowered initially. Doing the breath work, it was that whole mantra of you can do anything for a minute. And I'm like, oh, I've got this under control. This is uncomfortable, but I'm getting that much closer to meeting my baby. And that was just so exciting for me. And then we get to the hospital, and I went to UCSD. And so we go through the ER. And I remember seeing Heather, and she goes, and I'm the whole way there. I'm going through contractions and, I'm getting a little bit louder and things, but I kept going low moans, slow moans. So we get there, and my husband drops me off, and Heather goes, I think we're here too early. Like, you're talking to me right now. I was like, well, I'm pretty fucking uncomfortable. That's not a lie.
You were a really good masker. Like, you were chill, like way more chill than you thought you were.
I was like, I'm pretty uncomfortable. And they're like, it was either you, Heather, or the people working there, like, can you walk? And I'm like, oh, hell no.
Yeah. Like, and that's when I was like, okay, maybe we're here.
Yeah, I'm like, I need a wheelchair. We're doing this. And we get pushed through, and I'm working through it. And I just remember being in this like zone, this bubble felt like it was around me. And I was just getting to my space. Finally, we get there, and they tested my fluid to see if my water had actually broke. And they couldn't confirm. They were like, no, we can't confirm. And mind you, I chose UCSD because it's a great hospital, and that's where I wanted to be. But I'm about 35 minutes from there. So when we get there, and Heather goes, well, do you want to do the cervical exam? Because then they can see if you're in labor or whatever. And I'm like, well, I'm not going home. So yeah, we're going to do that. And I just kept looking at that bathtub. So we were in the birthing center. I'm like, I want to be in that bathtub. And so they did the cervical exam, and sure enough, she's like, you're halfway there. You're 5 centimeters. I'm like, go time. So then Heather sets up the room, because I brought the votives and the sparkle lights and all the things. And it was a vibe in there. It was wonderful. I wish we could have stayed. And that's where things change. So it was good for about an hour, I would say, but we'll get a little graphic here. It was like weird. It was like once my body knew we were there, baby was like, okay, we're doing this now. And I started literally fluids coming out always, like all the things. So I started throwing up consistently. I could not stop. And then every time I'd throw up, I'd pee all over the floor. Remember that, Heather? It was
Yeah, I
soaking
do.
wet in there.
I do.
And my husband's sitting there going, oh my God, like he wasn't expecting that.
Oh, I bet he was so overwhelmed with
He's just,
like, what the hell is happening?
he literally, it was funny because I would look back to make sure he was okay. Weirdly, I'm in this crazy space, but I would look back and he would look at Heather. It was like he wanted to make sure Heather was chill. If Heather's chill, he's good.
Mhm.
It was funny. And that's where like the energy was really great to have you there, Heather. So throwing up, pee all over the floor. It was funny. I had these fuzzy socks that I came in and my husband's like, yeah, you should probably throw those away.
I remember that. He was so concerned about the most like oddball
Yes.
things, which
like,
was great.
You got to throw those away. And I'm like, okay, I'm throwing off my socks. That's the last thing. All the rest of my clothes are off. So I just have fuzzy socks. So those are gone. But then they filled up the bathtub and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get better. I think they gave me Zofran at this point because I could not stop throwing up. Finally got into the tub and I'm like, okay, we're good. We're centered. Deep breaths. I get on all fours. I'm like feeling it, feeling back to being somewhat in control of what's going on. And then my sweet baby decided to flip. And during the middle of contraction, I could feel her moving in contractions and she flipped. And basically I had back labor and I felt it. It was weird. I like felt her move. And then the next contraction came and I was like, oh my God, my back is literally going to snap. This is what this feels like. And I'm like, something's wrong. This isn't what I was feeling before. And so it was crazy to me because I kept going back to the mantras. I'm like, you can do anything for a minute. Well, and then you get a break, right? So you get a couple minute break and you can get back centered and catch your breath and do the things and then get back into it. That was not my situation. I literally had the worst labor and in terms of contractions. So it would be like this gnarly minute of back labor. And then I would be puking in my rest. And then I'd get like maybe 20 to 30 seconds to catch my breath and get back into it. And then it would happen again. And so like I was losing energy quickly. I was getting completely depleted. And I did that for about, I would say by the time I made some decisions. Let's just say I made some decisions from there that this wasn't going to go well. And so I was like, where's the epidural immediately? And then sweet Heather and my husband both go, you didn't want the epidural. So let's talk about it. And all in my head, I kept going, let's just back up. The midwife comes in and she's like, well, these are your options, right? So she goes through all the options as she should. And in my head, I go, well, I know it takes the anesthesiologist quite some time to get here. And if I'm saying no to that right now, and none of these things work, then I'm that much further away from the real deal. And that's what I need right now. And so I was like, thank you so much for all your options, but no, I need an epidural. I love this room. I'm sad to leave it, but this is the right decision because I feel like I'm going to die right now. I have to say, before I made that decision, there were a couple minutes that I had moments between, if I added them together, of thinking through those videos that you showed us, Care. And those women where you're like, oh yeah, I should back labor. That's a superhuman. I don't know who the hell can go through back labor and just like, I literally thought that I was going to die. I was like, my back is going to snap.
But you also didn't see them have the added complication of puking and peeing at every time.
No, I didn't. I didn't
right?
see that.
Because they weren't doing that.
That's true.
Like everything, you can't ever compare yourself to another labor because your experience is completely different than someone else's.
Yeah.
Like some people have natural birth and it was like so easy. I just coughed her out. And then others are like, it was the most tortuous. And some people are like, I made it through. Like you cannot compare because it's how we work through our filters and what's happening in our body.
Yeah.
So yes, we saw back labor. Doesn't mean it was the same kind of back labor.
Yeah, that's true. It was excruciating. And I was somewhat bummed in that moment because I was like, I was feeling so empowered and I had to give up because I was like, this isn't working. And then, so here's where, before the epidural came into the picture, Heather goes, let's see where you're at. If you're up to it, let's do, you could do a cervical exam and see where you're at. Because if you're at 8 centimeters, I say, let's push through. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, let's do that. So she comes in, does a cervical exam. I'm like, right under 6. So it's been an hour and a half, right? Almost 2 hours at this point. And I'm like, wait, what? Oh no, this is 100% happening. We got to get out of this room. Unfortunately, it wasn't working out.
Just a couple of things to clarify for people who are listening. When Brandi says the baby flipped, the baby went from a regular head down facing her back position to a sunny side up. So, and it was interesting because from the outside, when that contraction hit, I could see it. I could see that something major shifted, and I didn't know what it was at that moment until the back labor. But this is why, as a doula, that it is so important to me to meet with families so many times prior to labor, because I knew Brandi and I knew how important an unmedicated vaginal birth was. But I also knew in that moment that we were really done. And it wasn't a moment of she's asking me to help her push through and she's asking for more emotional support. It was very confidently, I could say, no, Brandi has reached Brandi's limit and we need to help her transition to a different plan at this point. So that I think really worked with us. We have this understanding and this trust and this innate knowledge of each other where the three of us were just on the same page at the same moment, ready to go.
Which is what it should be. Be present with the person giving birth. Whatever they want, they get. And it's never but you said, you're like, okay. And I love, Heather, that you said, okay, let's do one more vaginal check. Let's like exhaust all the opportunities, which I'm sure, Brandi, that was kind of like, you don't have a regret about that because you're like, no, we exhausted everything before I pivoted.
Yeah. And I wanted to, because if we were at 8 centimeters, I would have pushed through that final bit. I was so headstrong. I was like, yes, this is what I'm doing. But when it really took a turn, I was like, this isn't going to work. How many more hours of this do we have? And that's when my husband, I think, came to Heather and was like, hey, she really wants to not do it the epidural. Because again, I didn't want to labor on my back. I didn't want to be stuck. That was like one of my fears, I guess, is just like the epidural piece. I did not want to be in one position, not be able to move and be paralyzed. Yeah, that's a nightmare for me. So all that to say, my husband went over to Heather and she was like, oh no, we have a long way to go. This is the right decision. And you even said too, Heather, I remember you saying, I think this is the right decision because you're basically running out of energy. Like you have nothing to give.
Yeah. And it was because of that vomiting. And even with the Zofran, you were still super nauseous. And that's just a whole other dimension of like work that you have to do. And I don't know, once you just get to that point where you're like, I'm really just done. If we were to keep pushing, you would have been suffering intensely. And that's not the whole point of labor. So,
Yeah. And that's one of the things I kept telling myself. I was like, I want this to be beautiful. Like I want this birth to be beautiful. And I want to be excited to meet my baby and be with her and all these things. So I kept thinking through that as I was trying to make the decision. Because I was torn. Because again, before that, I felt like I was like really empowered and feeling good. And I remember multiple nurses came, is this her first birth? Because she's functioning in this really well. I'm like, thank you. But it was like one of those things where I just felt like a total boss. I was like, I've got this. So I felt like I was giving that up somewhat when I made the decision to get an epidural, but it was the right decision for my body, for my baby, for everything. And I was like, this is it. And we exhausted all the resources in terms of our options. I could have potentially done sterile injections, I think it was, in my back and all these other things. And I was just like, this pain feels way too crazy for that to work at this point. So we did make the decision and moved over. And I will say it was the best decision. Like I am so, so grateful. Yeah, we moved over together. It was a small room initially, unfortunately. So poor Heather and my husband were sleeping on the ground, but it was a very intense experience getting an epidural during back labor. Like you have to bend over. And I think that's when my blood pressure skyrocketed during that experience because I had to be still while feeling back labor. It was horrible during contractions. Anyhow, I got the epidural and the lady did such a great job because I said, I want to be able to feel my legs. Do not numb me completely. And they did. She did such a good job because I was able to move my body. It's funny, after the epidural, it kicked in about 10 minutes in, the back labor slowly melted away. And I was like, oh my gosh. I felt like a new human. I think the energy in the room completely changed. My husband was like, because I'm like asking them, like, how you guys doing? How are you feeling? It did. It changed. But it was amazing. So slowly that melted away. And then it was like my body could do its thing again. I was more relaxed. And I was thinking too, Kara, one of the things you said is your body needs to be open. You can't be tense. And that's all I was during those moments. All I could do is be tense. I remember just like squeezing, trying to get through it. And I was just like, I just need this to pass. And I wasn't actually letting my body do its thing. So once I got the epidural, my body is able to do its thing. And that was what I needed. So I would say 5 hours had passed at that point, and I had progressed pretty quickly. So let's see, hold on. I got admitted at 9 p.m. Got the epidural, I think around midnight, maybe 11 midnight or so, just to give everybody an understanding of how quickly things had progressed. And then by, I want to say 4, maybe, I think I was at like 8 centimeters. So 8 or 9. And then get this, my water actually hadn't broke. Heather was under the impression that it might have been leaking.
I still think it was.
I think it was too, but they had to actually break my water. So at about like 7:30, 8 o'clock, they're like, so your water's still intact. Do you want to break this? And I was like, okay, so what are the downsides at this point? Because like, I'm in it. And like, well, we can let it just go naturally and see what happens. Or there is no downside at this point. We can just break it and you'll have a baby. Well, let's have a damn baby. Let's do it. And so they did. She broke my water, which was crazy. I thought it was going to be like some sharp thing that like you just pop a balloon, and it was not like that at all. It looked like a crochet thing. It was trippy. Broke it. And then I would say within 30 to 45 minutes or so, I was ready to push. They came back in, and the team of people that came in were amazing. I will say that was like, and they didn't pay me to say this, I promise. UCSD is phenomenal. Like, their staff, not one person I came across, my husband and I talk about this often actually, not one person where you're like, they're having a bad day. Every single one of them was just amazing, like cheerleaders. Like, I felt like I had a cheerleader group during my pushing. Like, it was such a cool experience. And I was able to be fully present for it because I didn't feel like I was dying. But I could feel my contractions, which is what I wanted. So it was more natural. I could feel them coming. I'm like, I'm having a contraction. She'd look at the screen. I'm like, okay, let's push. So yeah, 8:40 a.m. They're like, hey, typically it takes about 2 hours for your first time, 2 hours of pushing. And I'm like, I'm going to do it in an hour. I don't know if I said that, but I do remember, I was like, I'm doing it in an hour. Did I say that, Heather, out loud?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, you were like, every goal that was given to you, you were like, I'm going to do it in half. I got it.
I'm doing it.
It almost sounds like an empowered birth.
I'd honestly, if I could think of one word, really, I felt empowered basically the entire time. I threw in the towel when it came to the epidural and that piece, but I did feel the entire time that I still had somewhat control. And my baby it was wild how like they told me that once you get the epidural, the heart rate can decrease a little bit. And you might see a drop. It's normal. It'll come back. Nothing. She was steady the entire time through it all.
And Brandi, you didn't give up. You didn't throw in the towels. You used a tool that was available to you super appropriately and with intention, right? You didn't get the epidural because you were afraid. You didn't get the epidural because somebody else told you to. You got the epidural because you knew that's what your body needed to be able to birth this baby with peace and intention for the rest of the time. So I just want you to like reframe that.
It's so different when it's used as a tool than a fear-based, I can't, I'm too scared. It's so different. And because that kept you on track. You're like, okay, how are you guys doing? I'm feeling okay. Now let's let my baby do what my baby needs to do. And you're not puking all the time. You're relaxing and you're staying in touch with her. So yeah, it is so different.
It's true. And again, I still felt like I was in control. So I think it was the right amount of everything. And I look back on my birth story very fondly. Like, I enjoyed the whole experience. And I guess the good part right here. So the pushing piece, I have to say I did it in just about 2 hours. 10:44 was when she was born. So right at 2 hours or so. But we tried different positions. I was able to move my legs, I think more so than they were comfortable with. I will say that because I was like flipping around. And I remember being like, be careful. And I'm like, no, I feel great. I feel good. I'm like flipping my body around. I tried pushing on my back and it wasn't as scary for me. In that moment, it's funny because I was like, I don't want to lay on my back. And then I was like, let's give it a try. And I actually was like, oh, okay. This isn't so bad. I tried all fours. I tried a couple different positions, but the ending one was Heather's brilliant idea. So the bar at the end of the bed, the squat bar, put my feet on there. And I ended up doing this like you're snowboarding a little bit. I had one foot on the side and one foot on the top. And we took one of the sheets. And then originally I was doing some tug of war with Heather. And then I'm like, my husband works out. Let's put Campbell in there and make him get a little workout in. And so he was doing it with me for a while. And then he wanted to catch the baby. But it was nice because so I'd have the pushes and then I had the breaks, which is great. And then they'd tell me, your milestones. Oh, we can see your hair. We can see whatever it is. Do you want to feel like first we had a mirror. It was a small one. The big ones are all being used, but that's fine because I'm visualizing it. And then they'd be like, oh, do you want to feel? So you could put your hand down and feel her head. And that for me was like, because I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. Like I've been pushing for an hour and I told myself I was done in an hour and nothing's happening. They're like, oh, we can see it. Oh, we could see it. And I'm like, well, I can't. So, and then I put my hand down and I could feel her head and I'm like, we're having a baby. Like this is fully happening. And that was just super cool for me. So all those little milestones after that, it was like the more I put, the sooner she was coming. And they would be cheering me on as I would do this. So they're like, come on, you have one more in you. Or that was such a good one. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, this is awesome. Like it was the coolest experience. So Campbell wanted to catch the baby. And so we tied the sheet to the squat bar and then I would pull up. And it was almost the way I could describe it is almost if you've been water skiing or something like that. That's kind of how it was working. So I'd be pushing, but I'd be pulling myself up to get closer and push the baby out more. And it was a very comfortable position. I was kind of on my side, but still somewhat on my back. And I could feel the contractions coming. I'd tell them when it was happening. So I felt, like I was running the show in terms of listening to my body and when those things could happen. So, and then she literally just flew out. The last push was like, it felt like she just flew out. It was weird. Yeah. I don't know how to explain it. It was like a little fish just went.
But Campbell got to catch her?
Campbell did get to catch her.
That's so good.
Yeah. And get this. So the midwife initially did a little feel at the beginning, and this was before all the back labor happened. Goes, oh, I think about 7 pounds. And I'm like, I could totally do 7 pounds. She was 8 pounds, 10 ounces. So,
well, you could do 8 pounds, 10 ounces too.
I totally can. And I'm really glad that I went in thinking 7 pounds, because if I went in thinking 8, 10, I'd be like, oh, good God.
That's so funny. I just look at babies as fat. Like I just think if they're 10 pounds, they're just squishy and that fat's going to squish through the hole. I don't think linebacker. I think fat, like a squishy baby.
She was chunky. She was a chunky little thing. But yeah, that last push was just an interesting experience for me. And then it was like within seconds, I was having her on me and skin to skin. It was like I could smell her. It was just like one of those special moments ever. You cannot even begin to articulate it until you experience it. But yeah, I was like, this birth was fucking awesome. Like hard in the beginning. I'm so glad I went through it. I'm even glad I experienced the back labor because I'm like, wow, those ladies that push through that are really gnarly. But then it was just like, my body is capable. And now, thank God for medicine, I'm able to really enjoy the experience. But all in all, it was, especially I felt just supported with my husband, the team that was in there. It was like we were really operating as a team. And I think I wrote that several times in the questionnaire for this. You really need a team and you need people you can trust and that you're comfortable with. And they're just like looking in the same direction as you. Like they get it. They're not trying to steer you off. Like they want what you want.
And another thing that you wrote in your intake form, which I was like, as soon as you said it, I'm like, yes. Talk about the Friends episode.
Pivot.
Because it's in my head now and I cannot not see it. It's so great.
Yeah, if I could really think the Friends piece. So like when Ross, they're moving the couch up the stairs and they're like, pivot. And that's like what was going through. It was constantly pivoting. I knew that my birth plan was not going to go as planned. I'm like, that's a unicorn. It just doesn't happen. So I was like, there's going to be situations where you have to change direction and plot twists and all the things. But I feel like mine was constantly pivoting. Like it was just one of those moments where it was like, oh, you feel great. Everything's going so well. Oh no, we're going to have some puke and we're going to have some pee everywhere. And then you're going to get into the bathtub, which is the piece you really wanted. You're going to get in there and you're going to have a great experience for one contraction. And then she's kind of, flip. So there's another pivot. And then it was like just multiple times as we went through it. But to be honest, all those pivots led to like this most beautiful experience. And I would not change a thing about it. Like I truly loved every piece of it. Granted, if I have another baby, I would definitely still try to do natural birth and then know that my body can handle so much. And if it can't, then I use the options. But the empowering piece was so magical for me. I've never felt stronger. I work out and I do all these great things and I'm pretty headstrong and whatever. But that was just like one of those things where it was like, I could take on the world,
And sometimes the hard and the challenge is so that we know that I can make decisions in the moment from here on out, the rest of my life. I know I can get through anything because I just got through that, even though it wasn't what I planned, right? Like the empowerment is always inside of us, but sometimes it takes that baby's flip to show us there's also power in surrender. There's also power in pivoting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not always a bad thing. It was the right decision. And knowing that she was going to be healthy was important to me.
What advice would you give to new parents who are preparing for birth, thinking about their birth plan, building their team out, all that kind of stuff? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. I am definitely a person that over prepares. Like I mentioned, I don't suggest it for everybody because the experience is overwhelming to begin with. And giving yourself too much information can be that much more overwhelming. I do think definitely signing up hypnobirthing was incredible because it covered the gamut of birth, right? So you see all these different experiences. I think too, it helps with your mental clarity during those crazy moments. And then breastfeeding was super helpful to initially understand like what a good latch is. You don't know these things. You have another baby, you have no idea. And you definitely want to make sure you set yourself up for success with that initially. And then, of course, get help after that. So, having a lactation consultant that either get a referral from somebody or just have that on standby because there are things that come up that it's good to reach out to. But your initial team, I think preparing your spouse or your partner, whoever is going to be in that room with you, one huge tip is don't have too many people. So, apparently, there's a study that each additional person you add in the room adds an hour to your labor. And I actually believe that because you're not as comfortable. There's too much going on and you can't focus and be within your own space. But for me, it was, yeah, setting myself up for success when it came to understanding the information. What exactly do I want? And not just what from someone told me. Like I did a ton of research to make sure this is what I want my birth plan to be at the hospital. Like I can't even tell you I rave about UCSD to like anyone that's having a child. And it's funny because I'm like, where are you birthing? And they're like, oh, I'm birthing here. And I'm like, if he's not by UCSD, you might have done a tour of yours and like may have set everything up, but you should totally consider that. But really, though, it's making sure you're confident in the hospital you're delivering at or birthing center, wherever it is, to make sure that you feel comfortable with that team and you're confident in their ability to get you where you need to be without pushing their plan, which could be a C-section or things like that. I felt comfortable knowing with the midwives that if something were to go wrong, they would suggest the right thing and not just immediately go to a C-section because they wanted to get out of there, which was nice. I felt really good about it. Having a doula, I could not, and I've actually referred Heather to a couple other people, but truly having a doula in that room with you is, and just beforehand too, like really helping you understand. And it's the pair of the classes and what you're learning to having someone that has the experience and expertise to be like, hey, maybe you should consider this or explain what some of these things mean. Because there were certain things that came up on my birthing plan. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And so, what does that mean? Should I be looking into this? And I've done a lot of research. So, I was surprised I didn't know what some of these things were, but having someone walk you through that and those different options. And then again, I talked about the energy in the room. Like Heather really made sure that she's gone through this. She's seen a lot of births, right? So she's not struck by anything. But I will say there was moments where my husband looked at her for that safety and making sure that everything was okay. And is this normal? Look in his eyes. Is this normal? Should we be worried that she's nonstop throwing up and peeing herself? But like, it really is like having that energy in the room. And she's worked with the staff. She knew a bunch of their names. It was like, I don't know their names. So I do apologize. I just know their faces, but like Sally, oh, good to see you, or whatever. And they would like have a little chit chat and off to the side, nothing that was distracting to me, but it was comfortable because I'm like, oh, they know her. We're good. Like I'm in a good space. And they understood my plan and they were just encouraging me along. So I know you can't choose the people in the room specifically, but if you feel that energy with like your doctor and stuff, that comfortableness, typically the staff that's going to be in there is going to have that too. And they respect you. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's what I would suggest.
So good. What about postpartum? Is there anything you wish you would have known or prepared for? Because you can't cover it all in birth class. Doulas can't cover it all. We try and give as much as we can, but
Yeah, that's a wild ride. I'm still on it. I'm still on the wild ride. But I think I'm through the thick of it. But I will say one thing that I wasn't prepared for is how sore you're going to be when you have vaginal birth. I thought through it. I'm like, oh yeah, it's going to be sore. Oh no, we're talking like you go on a walk, a short walk, like up the street and back down, and you got to ice yourself. And I'm like, I didn't expect to do that for weeks and weeks. One thing that I think that I would, Epsom salt baths. That for me, I waited too long to do that because they give you like the sitz bath and stuff, but it was like stretching and feeling really uncomfortable. Like I was in more pain after I did that. Like it just wasn't the vibe for me. I tried it multiple days and I was like, I'm so uncomfortable. I think it's making it worse. So I'm just gonna do an Epsom salt bath because essentially it's the same thing, right? So I'm just sitting in whatever. And that I did it after I think week 2 every single day for I want to say till like week 7. Fabulous. So nice. And you get this like time to yourself to like just sit and be because there is a definite mental piece that comes through. And yeah, your hormones, they really take you for a wild ride. And I had heard about it. And I'm blessed that I didn't go through any sort of like postpartum depression, but I certainly had anxiety. So my daughter was born in November in the thick of all the sicknesses. And it was extremely stressful for me. Like my anxiety just skyrocketed. I was like, and it didn't help that I was being fed all this stuff on social media where it's like these kids that are in the hospital, like these babies that are in the hospital because they were exposed to something during the holidays or whatever. And then I hear horror stories of friends, right? So I'm like trying to protect this baby with all my might, especially with the family coming in. And it was stressful. So I would say the postpartum is so important to focus on. If I could go back, I probably would have read books potentially on it or podcasts or something to better prepare myself for what that could be like. It doesn't take it away. It's still going to happen, but I think you're just for a better way of saying it, I just think that you feel more equipped to go through it and to prepare your partner, whoever's going to be with you. Because there was at one point where the baby was crying. This is when the hormones really hit. I'm like thinking week 1, I'm good. Oh no, it happens after that. And I'm sitting there holding her. She's crying because like we had a little feeding issue right in the beginning, but we solved it pretty quickly. But she's crying, and then I start crying, and my husband comes in, and he's like, "What the hell is going on?
How do I fix this? What do I do with this?
Yeah, he's like, I don't even know how to help you." And I'm like, I don't know. And then it got to a point where no matter good or bad, I'd bawl my eyes out. We had so many wonderful friends drop off meals with nice messages. And I would open up the card and I would just bawl my eyes out. And my husband was just like, Brandi, are you going to be all right? I'm like, I think so. I'm just so happy. And so whatever. And then literally within 2 hours of that, I'd get an email with a gift card to like DoorDash, bawl my eyes out. And he was like, when does this end? This is still going on. Not now, but this went on for weeks.
And it made him so uncomfortable. And that's just you getting rid of the hormones.
Yep. I'm already an emotional person. He's analytical. So like Henry Crosby, he's very analytical. So like he removes emotion. He has it, but he removes it a lot when it comes to figuring situations out and trying to make decisions, which is great and hard for me. So yeah, he was kind of like, what do I do with this? How do I help you? But we worked through it and I would tell him to, especially when I'd come out of it because you're being irrational and crazy. And you'd come out of it and I'm like, okay, so that's probably going to happen again. And just love me. Just love me. Don't argue with me. Don't tell me I'm crazy. Just love me. So, yeah.
It's so great. What would you say the theme of your birth was?
I would say, well, it was a mix of empowerment and pivot. I mean, throughout it, I felt like I could conquer the world and I was in control and I could do this. And it was, oh God, the feeling is like, it's addictive. It's like, honestly, having that feeling initially of being like working through a contraction, I'd like bring on the next one. Like it was so crazy initially. And then as I worked through them and had to go through my pivots, it was like, this is okay. This can still be empowering and great. And especially when after the epidural, I could feel the contractions. I'm like, yes, okay, we're still here. I'm not entirely numb and just going with it. I'm very much active, which was nice. Like I was the pilot. I wasn't really the passenger. And that's for me was really important. And so it plays into that empowerment piece. And then just, yeah, the pivoting I think was necessary. And like we said, birth plans rarely go as planned. So being okay with the pivot is huge.
Well, and if you don't mind me commenting, do I have permission to comment on
100%.
my observation? Your birth is such a good example of we have choice in every situation. One of our biggest fears in birth is that we are going to lose control. And the only control we have is over that present moment, the breath or the choice or the pivot or whatever. We always have a choice. That's what keeps us feeling in control when it's totally out of our control. I have a choice to breathe. I have a choice to be empowered. I have a choice to be pissed right now and say, fuck. I have a choice to whatever it is, and the more you talk and the more examples you show, I'm like, we have choice in every single thing we choose to do. We have choice, which is why I feel like the empowerment piece was just like empowered, empowered, empowered. You're always empowered. And to say that I have choice in this isn't bad. I can still do this. This is good. I'm still going to work on this. Because it could have gone both ways, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You could have made the choice to say, I didn't get what I wanted. It's all going downhill. I'm just so impressed, and I'm so glad you came today to tell your story. Heather, anything you want to end with?
There are some births that are just fun, I think, for lack of a better word for doulas. This was one of them. And I think it was because Brandi was so open to listening to her body, to her baby. And it was just such an open birth. Like everybody, the vibe was right, the energy was right. It was really awesome to watch this very planned out, this is how I want everything to go birth, not go that way. And just to see Brandi be okay, right? Like it was fine. Everything was fine. And there was so much growth in this. I don't even know how much time we were together in that birth, 9-10 hours, whatever it was. There was just so much growth from getting to the hospital to that baby on her chest. And those are the births that we live for, right? It's just so cool to see. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of that. And, I think of you and your family often, and that birth was it's just one of those that sticks in your mind and you feel good about all around.
Oh, I had the goosebumps. Oh my gosh, let's do it again. Round 2. Just kidding.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Well, second babies do come faster. So there's that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And we will see everybody next week.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, it's your body, your choice, and finding your voice is your power. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us in all the places, and go to birtheducationcenter.com for our blog and more online education classes. And we'll see you next week.